Hey, it's John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and it's the Entrepreneurial You, the show for dedicated and passionate Caribbean entrepreneurs seeking daily inspiration, brought to you by author, speaker, and award-winning entrepreneur Heneka Watkis-Porter. You must be prepared to ignite.
My people, my friends, welcome back to another episode of the Entrepreneurial You podcast, where we dive into the journey of remarkable entrepreneurs. We're shaping the landscape of personal development, and today we're looking personal development and wellness. So I'm your host, Heneka Watkis-Porter, and if you're new here, welcome. If you've been a regular, welcome back. Happy to have you. Now, I want you to get ready to go on a journey of self-discovery and growth. We're going to be delving into my guests' insights on holistic wellness. But first, I've got to thank my sponsor. Extend gratitude is a must to the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
We needed to raise capital, but our experience with local financial institutions was that they were cautious and slow to act, and interest rates were far too high. We had real concerns about financing our business through outside equity investors and the possibility of interference. Could we get a fair valuation for our business? We had our own ideas about the business and its value. Should I go the traditional route of bank financing, or should I try the Jamaica Stock Exchange? So we made a call and experienced transformation of our business through conversations. I'm John Mafood, CEO of Jamaican Teas, and we're listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Give us a call today at 876-967-3271 to begin your transformation through conversation. We want to see your company listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Welcome back. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with a trailblazer in the realm of well-being and personal development. As a founder of Workout and the author of a transformative book bearing the same name, she is on a mission to empower individuals to embrace their authentic selves and live authentically. Please join me in welcoming Taylor ELyse Morrison. Hey, Taylor, welcome.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
It's my absolute pleasure. Before we dive into the whole personal development and the inner workout stuff, let's start with something fun. If you could have a superpower for just one day, what would it be and why?
Yeah, I've heard people talk about the debate of like flying versus invisibility. I totally would want to be invisible. I'm a nosy person. And so just to be able to like be a fly on the wall and hear what people are really thinking, I think I might get my feelings hurt, but it also would be really fun to have that power for a day.
Interesting. All right. So can you share a pivotal moment in your journey that inspired you to find, to have been the founder of Inner Workouts and write the book that you have?
Absolutely. So for me, I come to this work because self-care does not come naturally to me. And so a really pivotal moment was this time where I was doing a lot in my career. I was working full-time at a startup. I had a side hustle. I had just gotten married. I was volunteering with multiple nonprofits and trying to have a social life too. And I kept burning myself out. And I remember this one particular Sunday night where I was trying to plan for the week ahead. And I just was not planning. I was panicking. I had my planner out, I had my laptop, and I couldn't map out everything in the week because I was like, how am I going to get everything done? And even if I get through this week, how am I going to keep getting through the week after that and the week after that? And that was a moment where I really realized I needed to approach my life differently. And it wasn't just going to cut it to take a weekend off or something like that. I really needed to rethink the way I was approaching self-care and have an honest conversation with myself about burnout.
You said something which is, you said it about yourself, but can I tell you, I think it's everybody. We don't, self-care don't come naturally to us at all. And for me, I share on this podcast often that I've been burned out before in a really bad way in 2020, made COVID-19 seem as though it was a walk in the park. And so taking, steps to take care of myself is something that I try to do. And even now with that experience, I still tend to, because of muscle memory, I have this tendency to want to go back to the way things were when I can't. So what are some of the strategies that we can pull on that will help us to stay taking care of ourselves, stay in that zone of taking care of ourselves?
Absolutely. I love that question. I think to start, I want to talk about the way that I talk about self-care, the way that we talk about self-care at Inner Workout. And the definition that we use is listening within and responding in the most loving way possible. I always like to start there, with self-care being this conversation, this listening within and responding in the most loving way possible, because otherwise what I see happening for people is that they try and make self-care just another item on their to-do list. And they're like, okay, if I do this specific thing or I do these sets of tasks, then I will practice self-care. And what inevitably happens is it gets pushed to the bottom of their to-do list, and then they feel bad because they're not getting done what they think that they're supposed to get done. Or they do it, but they're almost getting more burned out on quote unquote self-care tasks because they're not addressing what they actually need. And so the starting point is to have a conversation with yourself moment by moment and say, okay, what do I need right now? And sometimes that's a deep breath. Sometimes that's having a difficult conversation with a colleague. Sometimes that is doing something that we think about as self-care, getting a massage, taking a bath, but being able to realize that you don't always need the same thing in the moment is the first place I would start. And it's uncomfortable for a lot of people. We're not used to listening to ourselves. We're used to doing what someone else tells us to do and assuming that that's going to work. And so I see people all the time wanting to get to that second part of the definition, responding in the most loving way possible, because they don't want to listen within. They're like, I don't want that. I don't want to sit in silence, or I don't want to have a conversation with myself about how I'm feeling. But you got to start with that first conversation, and then you can get into some of the more practical action steps.
That kind of sound like some of the things that we can take away from Inner Workout, but let's go a little deeper and just share some of those critical takeaways that persons will walk away with, readers will walk away with from Inner Workout.
Yeah. So the way that the book is structured is we have this free take care assessment, and it asks you 75 questions that measures your well-being across the 5 dimensions that we use. So it starts there. And then the rest of the book is kind of a choose your own adventure. So depending on what you need to work on, there are all these different practices that you can do. And even if you don't read the book, you can take the assessment, and that gives you a good starting point. I often have people tell me, like, even before I looked at the assessment gives you 3 personalized practices based on your results. And people are like, even before I got to the personalized practices, just like sitting and asking myself those questions made a world of difference, because I realized stuff that I'd been ignoring.
And you said something which is very poignant, that, sitting in silence, and it's not something that we embrace at all. Like I think we're in a culture, in the Western world, in a culture of, if we are not doing, then we're not doing. You know what I mean? So we're not really used to just being, if there's nothing being done. So we don't think that just sitting in silence, listening to what's going on the inside of you, or simply just basking in nature, we don't think that is contributing towards our creativity. It doesn't, because it's not something that we're doing, and we don't feel productive, because it's all about being productive in this Western hemisphere. How do you, Taylor, integrate physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being and all the other things into your life in a way that is cohesive and coherent?
Yeah. So what's interesting about what you brought up about productivity, I think the first step is to say, like, we don't need to be productive all of the time. Like, I don't think the meaning of life is to be the most productive person in the world. Like, so many of the people on their deathbed, they look back and they're not saying, I wish I would have worked harder. They're wishing that they would have spent more time doing things they love with people that they love. That being said, for a lot of the practices that we do, we see that practices like meditation, like breath work, can help us be more creative, like journaling, like moving your body. They help us be more productive and creative, even though we don't think that's the case. So I'm not saying that you should do those things as a means to be more productive, but I'm saying that they generate a different type of productivity in your life. So some of the things that I personally like to do, and some of the things that I see in the inner workout community, are first starting small. Another big thing that I see for people is that they think if they want to commit to doing things related to self-care, they have to have 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes. And there are so many things that you can do in 5 minutes or less. One of my favorite things is called the 1 minute meditation. I learned this from Dr. ELyse Morrison, and it's a simple meditation. You spend 20 seconds fixing your posture. You can even do this if you're listening, because how many of us are like sitting here slouching? And then you spend the next 20 seconds just following your breath. You don't have to do anything fancy. You just follow your breath. And then you spend the final 20 seconds doing a quick body scan. That is one of my favorite practices for just resetting in the moment. And it only takes a minute. I'm also a big fan of writing. One of the practices that I like to do is almost interview myself. I will have moments where there's so much going on in my head, and I'll just see if I can like think of one question. So, how are you feeling, Taylor? And I'll start writing how I'm feeling. And then I'll ask a follow-up question. Okay, you're feeling angry. Why are you feeling angry? How long have you been feeling this way? And even just a few minutes of writing and asking myself follow-up questions in that way, again, can make such a world of difference. I also have clients who maybe don't like writing as much or typing as much, but they love to do this with a voice note. And it's a way for them to sit with their emotions, process things, but they prefer spoken word rather than written word. So those are some of the things that I like to do. I could go on, but the big thing I want to stress is it doesn't have to take a lot of time to shift your mood or to experience well-being.
And what you've just described a while ago, Taylor, it sounds also like that involves a lot of being emotionally aware and intelligent, being emotionally intelligent. For not just how you're showing up for others, but how you're showing up for yourself. And in turn, of course, that has a ripple effect towards how you show up to others. So let's talk about your personal development journey, and how does the world of personal development and, personal well-being collide in a way that is wholesome?
I love that question. I think for me, I'm kind of a nerd. And so when I look at the research on well-being, there's various definitions. One of the definitions that I love says that well-being is about how you feel, how you function, and whether or not you're experiencing fulfillment. And so when you are thinking about well-being in that holistic way, it's not just about like, am I flexible enough to touch my toes? Or am I eating the quote unquote right food? It's really about your day-to-day experience. And when you see well-being in that way, you can't help but incorporate personal development into it. Because I could be eating what the celebrity on Instagram is telling me to eat, but if I'm not dealing with my own conversations about how I view my body or what actually feels nourishing for me, that thing could be healthy, quote unquote healthy, but I may not be experiencing well-being. And so for me, it's hard to separate the concepts of well-being and personal development, because I don't think we can experience well-being if we don't know ourselves well.
And I think that response is perfect. I can hear and see my audience nodding. Yes. All right. So you've no doubt, witnessed some incredible transformation as a coach and facilitator. What pieces of advice, or one piece of advice really, do you have for individuals who are just kind of starting out on this self-discovery and personal growth journey? They don't even know the next step to take because it's new for them. They're used to the hustle and grind. What piece of advice would you have for them?
You like perfectly teed that up for me because I talk about something called best next steps. And I think that's where we start. What I see happening for so many people is we get excited. This could happen in January. This could happen around your birthday at any time. But we're like, I'm going to completely change my life. I'm going to change everything. And then what happens is we try and change so much, we get overwhelmed, and then we go right back to where we started. And I think a much more sustainable approach is to see, okay, I know where I want to go. What is the best next step that I can take? And it doesn't need to be a huge thing. So when I'm working one-on-one with clients, we try and get really specific on like, what is the one thing that I can do that would then have a ripple effect in my well-being? And you would be so surprised what those next steps are. Like I had one client who was like, I need to clean this room of my house because in doing that, I'm going to have some bigger conversations about how long I want to be in this house, what I want to do with this stuff. It was like it truly was a ripple effect. Or for other people, it can be like, if I can just nail down how I start my day, that is going to make all of the difference. Because right now I know I'm a morning person, but I don't get to experience the mornings because I'm hopping right onto my laptop to do work. So I could just give example after example. For some people, it's switching jobs. For some people, it's incorporating a routine into before they have like a meeting that makes them really nervous. And those are the little things that they do that create a ripple effect. And once that is more of a habit, or once that's been accomplished, then we can go to the next thing. But I think there's an importance of both the ripple effect, but also creating something that you can celebrate that builds momentum. So you want to keep going instead of trying to go all in and then getting discouraged and stopping.
Mm-hmm. And you said a lot and given us a lot of insight into different scenarios and stuff. But let's talk about that morning routine thing. I know you exampled pretty much specific up to a specific situation, maybe like a nerve, somebody feeling nervous before a meeting or something, but just generally a morning routine. How important is a morning routine vis-a-vis your self-care regimen?
Yeah, I think it both is and isn't important. So it's important for you to have something that works for you. For some people, they're going to want to like get up early and have a whole 3-hour thing, and that's going to feel really nourishing to them. For people who are more night owls, it may not be as big of a deal. I like to talk a lot about getting really clear on the components that support a routine, and then you can flex them depending on how much time you have. So for me, like a non-negotiable for me is that I need to move my body in the morning. I just am a much kinder, more alert, less stiff person when I move my body in the morning. Sometimes that's doing like a quick 5-minute yoga sequence. Sometimes that's going for an hour-long walk at the lake by my house. So I like to help people create routines, rituals that can be flexible. And if we know you like to reflect and you like to move your body and you need to eat something nourishing, we can figure out, okay, what do you do when you only have 10 minutes to get that done? And what do you do when you have like 3 hours to get that done? And there's a lot of comfort and again, ability to make this sustainable when you know it doesn't have to look the exact same every day, but you can still be checking off all of those components.
Awesome sauce. Awesome sauce. So I'm going to ask you at this time, Taylor, to just share with us your couple things, your contact details, where persons can go and get access to your freebie that you have for us. And finally, just to share your final thoughts. We've been talking a lot about self-care and personal development. What are your final thoughts that you want our listeners to walk away with today?
Absolutely. So you can stay connected with Inner Workout at innerworkout.co. And right on the homepage, when you go there, you'll see the link to take our free assessment. You'll also see the link. We're getting ready to launch an app. So you'll see a link to join that waitlist if you'd like to. And my last piece of advice, man, if I could narrow it down to one thing, I would want you to try right after you finish listening to this podcast to take a deep breath, to ask yourself, what do I need right now? And then to give yourself even 1 minute to do that thing. So if it's like, I need to be creative, maybe you do a quick doodle on a notepad. Or I need to feel a sense of connection. Maybe you send a text to a friend that you haven't talked to in a while. You could do a quick stretch. There's a lot of things, but start to build that muscle for yourself of asking what you need and then giving that to yourself. That's how you build trust with yourself.
Wow, why did you leave that gem right there? Like, I mean, this is something that we could go on because you just talk about building trust with yourself. Never have I heard that before. I've heard building trust with others, all about people knowing, liking, and trust us. But hey, talking about trusting ourselves and doing the little things, checking in on ourselves to figure out, how am I feeling today? And you peel the onion back. Okay, so I'm feeling sad. Why am I feeling sad? And you keep peeling the onion back until you get to the root of the problem. You have been an inspiration, just sharing with us. You have been a wealth of, motivation for us, Taylor, to look after ourselves. And I know more than anybody else how important that is, having faced burnout. So let us do the right thing and build trust with ourselves. It is easier many times for us to honor our commitment to other people. But when it comes on to honoring the commitment that we have made to ourselves, man, we fail miserably at times. So thanks for that reminder and ending on that very poignant point, Taylor. What an enlightening episode of the Entrepreneurial You it has been. And I just want to say to Taylor ELyse Morrison, a wonderful, hearty, big thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You're welcome. And don't, my listeners, forget to explore her book, Inner Workout, and stay tuned for more inspiring conversations coming up right here on the Entrepreneurial You podcast. Hey, you've been hearing me talk about this. So if you are an aspiring podcaster, busy entrepreneur, expert in any field, looking to start your own show, and you're wondering, oh my gosh, I can't bother with the tech. I can't bother with just figuring it out and getting the guests and all of these things that come with the podcast because it's a lot. We have you covered. We have you covered. Let the Entrepreneurial You Media create your podcast for you. All you have to do is show up. So from ideation straight through to post-production and marketing and all the things in between, we have you covered for that. Give us a call. Reach out to us, HenekaWatkis-Porter.com. There's a WhatsApp icon on the homepage. Go right there and simply send a message and I will respond. Or you can send an email to heneka@henekawatkisporter.com. Remember, your voice is unique. The world is waiting to hear your story. So don't let the fear of producing a podcast set you back, all right? Don't do that to yourself. All right, so while you are, listening, or after you've listened to the podcast and you want to stay in touch, of course, you can go to HenekaWatkis-Porter.com. But I'm also on social media at Heneka Watkis-Porter, so do check me out. Affirm with me as I close. I embrace my journey, trust my process, and let my inner light shine and guide me towards my highest potential. Until next time, keep nurturing your mind, body, and soul. I am Heneka Watkis-Porter. Do take care.